Hey guys, Avilo here bringing you another metagame update. This is Avilo metagame update number 16. And we had a lot to talk about in this one. Just the overall metagame, and also about Blizzard and them not doing their jobs. Well, first off, for this metagame update, we're going to be discussing how a game stagnates and how a game loses viewership, because this is something really big that's important not only for the balance of the game, but the community of the game. If you want a game to survive, especially an RTS game, you have to be diligent with balancing the game. If you guys remember Wings of Liberty, at the end of Wings of Liberty, every tournament was a Zerg player dominating. Every tournament was a Zerg beating somebody that they didn't deserve to beat with Broodlord and Fester. It was a lot of the tournaments boiled down to ZVZs and Zerg players winning that didn't deserve to be there or beating people better than themselves. And that's the honest truth. Not many people are going to give that to you because they're too politically correct of casters or whatever the fuck they are. But I'm real, man. I'm a baller. So that's just the first thing. So what happened? Why did Wings of Liberty viewership start to plummet? Was it because of like not enough tournaments? Was it because of casters? Was it because all these different no? It all boils down to the gameplay. If nobody wants to play your fucking game, and if the game is to a point where it's either A, boring, B, stagnant, or C, imbalanced in any way, no one wants to fucking play it. They'll move on to Dota 2, League of Legends, whatever the fuck, they're out the door. And so Blizzard waited a year and a half to step in and do anything to Broodlord and Fester, to Zerg, and the game suffered for it. We see the same exact situation happening here with Heart of the Swarm in the past, 6 months. Mothership Core Nexus Cannon is actually imbalanced and broken in Terran vs. Protoss. The developers are doing nothing about it right now. They're actually doing nothing. You've heard myself talk about it months ago. I pointed this out months ago to the developers, to the community. If you guys look through some of my past metagame updates, I described the exact issue with the Mothership Core. It allows Protoss to be really greedy while not dying, or it allows them to have more effective all-ins. So there's this risk-reward factor that is, the Terran can't kill the Protoss, but the Protoss can kill the Terran straight up. And we actually saw this last night in GSL, Marine King against whatever the Protoss guy, I don't even remember the Protoss' name, but he went 10-gate Mothership Core, and Marine King lost 2 best out of 1s to 10-gate Mothership Core with 2 Stalkers. That should not be possible for a Protoss to win a game in less than 4 or 5 minutes, whereas the Terran has no option to ever win the game before the 8 to 10 minute mark. The matchup is, hear me out, guys. The matchup is not imbalanced or broken in terms of the units against units, the unit interactions. When both players 200-200, it's up to Ghost and Templar micro and stuff like EMP versus feedback and Psystorm. But what's happening right now is the Mothership Core is such a broken mechanic in the early stages of the game, the Nexus Cannon. What ends up happening is it's so broken, it lets Protoss build up these tiny advantages in the early game, and that snowballs where, they're chrono boosting their forges, they have their upgrades faster than the Terran, even faster than previously, even faster than they could even previously get them, because they can defend everything with the Mothership Core Nexus Cannon. And so it leads to the matchup being broken in favor of Protoss, or Protoss favored, because of this early game Mothership Core nonsense, whether it's offensive or defensive with the click one button instant defense Nexus Cannon. So that's the first thing I have to say for this metagame update. The balancers, the game designers, they're not doing their fucking jobs. Somebody has to get on these guys. And it's not just the community has to get on these guys and make them do their fucking jobs. They're not doing their jobs. We saw this with, like I just said, with Wings of Liberty. They left it alone for a year and a half. It stagnated. It suffered. We saw Broodlord and Fester every single game for over a year and a half. I've mentioned it before. Spectators are not stupid. Everybody catches on eventually. It's the same thing with the Protoss versus Terran early game. Spectators are starting to notice, wow, the Protoss has a much easier time in this matchup every single time because of the Nexus can't, this is stupid. He's clicking on his Nexus and getting a free win. it has to be balanced. And as you can see here on my screen, there's no word about the Nexus cannon at all in this next upcoming possible patch notes. Nothing. So what the fuck is going on here? That's the question we have to ask. What the fuck? Why are they not doing their jobs? Even Major talked about it on another show recently. You know, he's saying the same thing I said months ago. So that's the first thing out of the way. TVP, it's a broken matchup. It needs to be fixed and addressed in some way. Do not leave the game like this for another fucking year. Of course viewership will suffer. The gameplay must come first. The gameplay always has to come first. So, with that said, second of all, Mech. Why is it still not viable? Why are these guys not doing anything to make Mech fucking viable? Myself, in the past 1 to 2 weeks, I've been massively posting on the official Blizzard forums, guys, trying to rile up something, stir up something in the community, whether it's just the newbie posters on the official forums, or getting other people to jump on the bandwagon that we want to see Mech play viable, especially against Protoss, because the developers are content to sit here and do fucking nothing. And finally, we get something from Blizzard. They're actually gonna do something, and but here's the thing, they do something, but it's so incompetent that it's like almost making the situation worse. So here we're gonna go, guys. Let me go over the most recent possible changes for a balanced test map. One, Overseer speed buff after the upgrade. So basically what they want is they want to make the game easier for Zerg players. That's right. They want to make the game easier for Zergs to deal with Widow Mines. And this is a bit ridiculous. It's surely an Overseer speed buff won't break the game, but it's a little bit ridiculous that they're, you know, Terrans have had to deal with splitting their Marines perfectly and their Vikings perfectly for ages. But now in Heart of the Swarm, it's equally as difficult for the Zerg, so they're trying to make something easier. It's mind-boggling, but I mean, it's not that bad of a buff. Like, it's not going to break the game or anything, but it's still, it's sort of like, what? You shouldn't be trying to make StarCraft easy mode in terms of these buffs. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, you know, how about you make the siege tank fucking better? Which brings me to the next thing here. And if you guys have seen my posts on the official forums, I've been trying to get it into Blizzard's brain, collective brain, that they need to make the armories cheaper. Here's the thing, guys. Mech TVP, it's not viable. Why? One huge reason why Mech TVP is not viable is because of the upgrades. You cannot upgrade your units at a reasonable time in the game compared to the Protoss player or even a Zerg player that are getting their evolution chambers, their forges, for only minerals really early on in the game. And what ends up happening is a Terran going Mech will oftentimes not have any upgrades versus 1-1 Protoss, or the Mech player will be 1-0 versus 2-2 or even 3-3 upgraded Protoss units. So this is an underlying issue of why Mech TVP has not been viable. That's one underlying issue. That's one thing. You know, being able to upgrade your units is important, and so, you know, they need to reduce the price of the armories so that you can get your upgrades into the game, so you can upgrade your units earlier. But what they're doing instead is they're combining the mech, ground, and air upgrades just like they had in the beta. And while this change does obviously make it better overall, you know, you pay less Vespian gas for your air and mech upgrades. The thing is, here's the thing, this doesn't address the actual issue. The issue is being able to upgrade your units in a timely manner against Protoss that are getting their forges and chrono boosting them. So while this saves you money in the long run, it doesn't let you start your upgrades early on in the game, your 1-1 upgrades. And so what this means is, it's the same situation. Yeah, you'll have better you will have better Vikings in the late game, that's true. But you'll also have Hellbats that I guess you can incorporate, but it doesn't really address the issue of you can't really afford the armories early on to begin your upgrades early on to keep up with the Protoss' upgrades, which is a huge sticking point on why Mech is not viable, because the momentum swing, like Protoss is on 2-2, you're on 1-0, there's all this time the Protoss player can attack you, possibly kill you, or do really advantageous trades with your army. And that brings me to the second thing that we see nothing in this patch addressing. Now here's the mind-boggling thing. We don't think Terran is struggling, but we think Mech in general has been weak. So why is there no word here about the Immortal? The Immortal is one of the huge reasons why Mech versus Protoss is it's not working. It's letting the Protoss be way too cost effective. And the same thing with the Tempest. Tempest and Immortal are broken against Terran Mech. They're actually just broken. There's many times the Protoss can literally just walk into the Terran army and come out ahead. So why is there... These guys do not listen. The Immortal has to change for Terran Mech to be viable. It's too hard of a counter. The reason why Bio is better than Mech, there's two reasons. A, the one that I just mentioned, upgrades. Engineering bays only cost minerals, and you can get them at barracks tech. You can get upgrades really early on in the game and keep up relatively close with the Protoss. So that's the first thing. A Bio player can get their upgrades at a reasonable time in the game. That's the first reason why Bio is better. The second reason, it's because Bio does not have such a hard counter system. There's no unit that a Zerg or a Protoss player can make that will magically make it so your entire army sucks shit. If you go Bio against Protoss, it's a battle of micromanagement, multitasking, and eventually your unit composition matters later on in the game. But if you build Marine and Marauder, you're not just going to instantly die because he made Immortals. Now when you look at Mech, if you go Mech, if you open Mech and your opponent goes Immortals, it's like you're fucked basically. Or if he opens Void Rays, you're screwed. If he gets Tempest really fast, you're screwed once again. So that's actually the reason when you see people in the forums and you see other pro players and anybody saying Bio is better than Mech, the reasons, the two underlying reasons, is because Bio can afford their upgrades to keep up with the opposing player's upgrades, which is a huge deal in a game of StarCraft. And B, the second reason, is because there's no magical unit that the opponent can make only that unit and hard counter Bio. It doesn't work like that. Whereas with Mech, if you go Mech, you're mixing in Thors, Hellbats, Siege Tanks, Ghosts, Vikings. The opponent just makes Immortals, and they're gonna get an advantage. They any unit, and then just mix mass Immortals, and suddenly they're winning. Or mass Tempest and Templar, suddenly they're at an advantage. It should not be like that. That needs to change. It's been told to Blizzard thousands of times, and they don't listen. So yeah, combining the Mech ground and upgrades, sure, it helps. It doesn't address the issue of getting your upgrades at a reasonable time in the game. And so this third thing here, which is the most facepalm thing that anybody has ever fucking read, and is almost grounds to fire these guys, is we don't think Terran is struggling, but we do think Mech in general has been weak throughout Heart of the Swarm. So now we're gonna start Vipers with full energy. Oh my fucking god. This is incompetency at its finest, and yeah, I'm not holding back. I'm just gonna flat out say what this is. I'm not, I'm gonna be real and say this is incompetence. This is actually just fucking incompetence. Combining the Mech, we don't think Terran is struggling, but we do think Mech in general has been weak. So they finally admitted that Mech has been weak. So what are they gonna do to make it better? They're gonna combine the upgrades, but they're gonna make the Vipers start with full energy. The Viper is one of the units that has been hard countering Mech hardcore throughout the course of Heart of the Swarm, the beta and release. And Blizzard has made this mistake repeatedly over and over and over again, every single fucking patch. They say they want to buff Mech and make it better, but they nerf it. They fucking smash it in the face every fucking time. Every single time. They say, yeah, okay, we'll do something to make Mech better, and then they make it 10 times worse. Go read the patch notes, guys. I encourage you in the comments to actually bring up past patch notes, and you'll see there are actually patches in the past where they have made Mech worse, patch by patch by patch, whether it's a Warp Prism speed buff, Tempest supply decrease, whether it's removing the armory upgrades, whether it's buffing the duration of the blinding cloud and the radius during the beta, which they did. They actually did that during the beta. They buffed the blinding cloud radius and they buffed the duration because they said Zerg players were not using the Viper enough. And now what they're trying to say is Zerg players are not using the Viper enough. Do you know why they're not using the Viper enough, Blizzard? It's because nobody's going Mech because the Viper is in the fucking game. The Viper is such a hard counter. It's too good. The Viper is just like the Immortal. It's one of these units that's... the Blinding Cloud is too good. It makes siege tanks almost worthless until you have a lot of Ravens. And so... this is just a slap in the fucking face to the community. This is incompetence. This change cannot go through. You say... as a company, they say... as balance designers, they want to make Mech better, but they're simultaneously going to make it fucking worse. There's no other word for this other than incompetence. I hope you guys that are watching this can understand this is not bias. An argument against what I'm saying right now. Here's an argument against what I'm saying. He's combining the mech and ground air upgrades, so he's buffing the Viper as a countermeasure. No, that I understand the thought process here that we're gonna make mech better, but we're gonna also fucking nerf it at the same. That doesn't work. How about you try to make mech better before you decide you need to make things even better against mech? Okay, that's the first thing. So, sure, this change, while it's not really targeted at what matters, sure, whatever. But the Viper, I could talk about this all day. How this will never go through. It should never go through. It's incompetence at its finest. But yeah, I mean, guys, people have been posting on the forums about Mech a lot in the past couple weeks, and finally we get this shit, and it's just a slap in the face because let's say that you have 20 tanks and your tanks are upgraded with not 3-3 upgrades, not 2-2 upgrades. Let's go to an imaginary world. Your tanks are upgraded. You have 5-5 upgrades. You actually have 5-5 upgraded siege tanks and Thors and Hellbats. Guess what? Blinding Cloud doesn't give a shit about your upgrades. It makes it so your units can't shoot, which is one of the reasons why the Viper is so good against mech, especially at the timing where the Zerg just gets their hive and they have Hydra Roach and they make like 5 or 6 Vipers. That's 12 Blinding Clouds that they now will have automatically. So no, this cannot go through. This is idiocy. It's good that they finally acknowledge mech is weak and underpowered. It's really disgusting that they don't mention anything about Terran versus Protoss, the Immortal, the Tempest. You know, those units are broken. They're actually broken against mech. They overperform. When something is overperforming, it has to be nerfed. And I mentioned in the last metagame update, you can just, you know, change the ratio of the shields on the Immortal to the hit points on the Immortal. So the Immortal will have less hardened shields, but more hit points to make up for it. So that way, it's still good against Zerg, but it's weakened against Terran Mech in particular. Which would be the perfect fucking change, right? It doesn't affect balance in any of the other matchups. It keeps Protoss versus Zerg. It keeps the Immortal just as strong there as an attacking unit. The attack is just as strong. The attack is just as strong against mech. But there's less hardened shields to actually chip off the unit, which means mech players would actually be able to fight against Immortals. It wouldn't be such a hard counter. But apparently they don't want to do that, or they don't listen. So guys, I mean, we can all agree it's good that they're doing something, because we don't want them to leave the game in a sorry state where they just leave it like this for another year without any changes and viewership is gone and everybody's off into the wind, because right now, honestly, it's like Wings of Liberty all over again. They're not changing the mothership core. Mech is still not viable. And then whenever they say they're going to make mech viable, they do half-assed stuff like this where they're like, I'm just going to read it again for you guys just to reiterate. We don't think Terran is struggling, but we do think mech in general has been weak. So now Vipers start with full energy. What the fuck is going on in this world? Who? Either fire the guy, either fucking fire the guy, get somebody else that can do a better job than him, or don't be this incompetent or drunk while you're designing the changes. So that would be that's what I'm going to end this metagame update on. Let's hope that they do some actual good changes to mech in the near future, because, you know, if they wait another 6 months, people are going bye-bye right now in StarCraft. Players are retiring, tournaments are dwindling, WCS, you know, if you didn't qualify, well, you're pretty fucked right now. Unless you have you know, the only thing going for StarCraft players right now is the streaming. Or if you're in the WCS system already, so that's what I'm here for, guys. Talk about stuff that other people won't talk about realistically, or that they're too afraid to talk about. That's why this is the metagame update. This is the real stuff. Let's hope Blizzard can do something to make mech, especially against Protoss, more viable. It's already viable against Zerg if you get enough Ravens. There's no mention of Swarm Hosts here either. Swarm Hosts are another unit that's basically destroying their own game, which is quite sad because it's basically just a Broodlord on the ground that you burrow. And some people would even argue the Swarm Host is even worse than the Broodlord. And there's actually good arguments for that. So, thank you guys for watching. I will be back. I will be, you know, I'm streaming. I'm going to be releasing another video with my new stream schedule as well. But yeah, this is incompetency. We'll see what happens. Hopefully they buff mech. Maybe they'll pay attention to why it's not viable. Yeah, and at this point, I'm just going to be repeating myself over and over. So, this has been Metagame Update number 16, guys. Spread the word. And yeah, spread the video around. Leave your comments. If you think I'm being really biased, let me know. If you think that, you know, I'm being quite realistic on the situation, then, you know, let me know. So, you know, I'm a spectator of the game. I'm a player of the game. I'm a streamer. I don't want to see StarCraft die because the developers are too stupid to actually balance their own game or actually do their jobs. So, thank you guys for watching, and peace, and I will see you.